Well, good morning. This is so much fun to be here. You are so lucky to have Mort Sherman in your lives. You are really lucky. Inspirational, smart, neurotic. We love that. Nobody's perfect. As a matter of fact, I'm certainly not perfect. I'm home. This is really home to me. I mean, Alexandria was not where I grew up. I grew up in Tacoma Park, Maryland. But I lived here for 19 years, and I am home. I love it. I just wanted to share a little bit with you before, I go on and talk about the program, which is actually quite simple. But I wanted to talk to you about my schooling. When I was in second grade, I was in the Purple Balls. And the Purple Balls was a reading group. And I was really excited because I was the only one in the Purple Balls. So I went home and I told my mom, I'm in the Purple Balls, Mommy. And she said, so what's the Purple Balls? I said, well, it's the best reading group. She said, well, why do you think it's the best reading group? I said, because I'm the only one in it. Well, it was the worst reading group because my boyfriend, David, explained that I was too dumb. So I now looked at my mommy, and she said, well, we're going to teach you to read. So she did. Then they had me color all fruit, the different colors of fruit. Purple grapes, red apples, but I did everything in yellow. I liked all my fruit yellow. So my teacher said, Goldie, you should have done them all, what color is an apple? Red. Well, why didn't you red? Because I like yellow. I was a pretty optimistic child, did things the way I wanted to. I signed every paper unfinished. Love, Goldie. So here's a special little kid, pretty happy with life, and realized later on, much later, that I had low-level dyslexia. Now, these were not things that we learned in those days, so I didn't really understand why my reading comprehension wasn't so great, or why I mixed up my words, which of course I did in Laugh-In, which made me a big star. So sometimes those deficits can work for us. However, one interesting thing is I became less enamored with school. I didn't like school very much because I had an issue with school and it was very difficult for me. And therefore, I was sort of moving through school like water. Couldn't wait to get out of school. I was a C student. My mother and father would celebrate when I'd bring home a B. And what was beautiful about my upbringing is that I had parents that actually supported me to do the best that I could do. So I wasn't pressured and I wasn't stressed. The only thing that happened to me is that even when I knew the question and I could answer the question, if the teacher would call on me, I was so stressed that I wouldn't be able to answer it that I forgot everything I knew. What's interesting is, and we'll get around to that later, is that that's actually what happens to the brain when the brain is stressed. When a child comes into the classroom and they're not able to believe in themselves, or that they come in with a load of things from home, their stories, that literally stop them from learning because of the brain physiology. And this is what I'm learning, as opposed to the just sort of the traditional ways of learning, is that now that we know more about the brain, my question is, why don't we implement it? Why don't we help our children and our teachers and our parents understand more about neurological connections, how we can actually affect the brain, therefore we can affect a child's level of perception and success. But I wanted to also talk about my own kids. Now, by the way, this is the thing. I'm here, I'm in a school, I'm talking about, education. And this is not what I've done for a living. So let's just put the fact that I was a movie star and an actress and I do all these things as my job. But the truth of the matter is, I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 4. I wish I was a mother of 10. I loved mothering. And each one of my children were different. And I was involved in their schools, and I was involved in the way that they learned. And I was looking at their school. For instance, one school I had them, they were in a very academic school. I thought it was important for them to get structure, seeing that our lives were so unstructured, being sort of right brain and creative and crazy. But at any rate, they had a heck of a time. They had so many books on their back. I was worried about basically their structure, their little backs. They were stressed. They were all about rote memorization. There wasn't any fun. There wasn't any who are they in the classroom. So I then moved to Aspen, Colorado, and decided to do very crazy half a year in Aspen, Colorado at an alternative school, where actually this school, the children designed themselves. They learned in cubbies. They had a theater in the round. They were self-motivating. Then I brought them back the other half, and I put them back into their very academic school. Well, do you know that after they were in this school, where it was the self-motivating school and their person was involved in learning, and everything they learned, whether it was math or whatever else, the teacher would take the time to say, what is your favorite? Oh, you like to fish? Let's do math with fishing. So my son, who was not very motivated, went back to that school, and actually the academic school, my children flourished. I thought, well, this is interesting. So my idea of teaching to the whole child really made a difference. It really worked. However, we moved away, and they went to high school, and one of my children was caught cheating. And I was brought into the principal's office, the headmaster, and he talked about it, and I knew that there were about 15 other kids in that class that cheated. But my son was brought into it because he was Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell's child. He was used as an example. That's fine. That's fine. Because we rose above it. Because we knew the truth. And my son and I sat outside and we cried in the car. He said, Mom, this isn't your fault. And I said, honey, I know it's not my fault. I feel so bad for you. Because there were so many other ones that weren't picked. They weren't chosen. You were used. I get that. You did a wrong thing. He accepted full responsibility, but he said something that was so interesting. He said, Mom, this school gathers around people who do drugs. They help them out. They have groups where they're sort of self-help groups. But he said, everybody cheats in this school because they're so afraid of failing. The pressure is so great that it's epidemic, Mom. Why doesn't anybody recognize that? Because these children come in with so much stress, so much pressure to perform, so much pressure to make A's and B's on tests. And each one of these children come in with their own story. And I don't care whether these kids are from affluent societies, which, by the way, are more at risk, because these children have no resilience, because things are done for them. Their parents are working. They work 2 jobs to get that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. They live in the suburbs, and they're flying high. Guess what? Their kids are left home because they're living in a good society, a good environment, a good neighborhood. And now what happens to the kids? Well, that'll get done for me. Well, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. More drugs, more suicide, more self-medication, more depression. Our children of affluence are in trouble. So when we start looking at all our children who are underprivileged or who are living beneath the poverty level, these children actually are more resilient because they want out. So you look at the whole spectrum and you look at this and you say, okay, guys, what are we going to do about this?